In the English composition courses I teach, just about every class activity, and certainly every major writing project I assign, is reading-based and, as best as I can, designed to invite a student's cultural context as the starting point, the premise by which a student will navigate the ideas, the language, or the modes of that particular task. This means three things are true in my class. One, comprehension of a reading and an ability to respond critically to reading is needed for success in major projects. Two, students will come to class prepared in a variety of ways to respond to a reading. And three, because my class discussions are student-centered, student-led, class discussions tend to be quiet when students don't do the reading. I'd like to share with you an equity-based activity, class activity, designed to address those three challenges. This class activity starts in a Google Doc. I list the article title and author at the top, along with a short version of the URL to this Google Doc so that students can access it directly without first having to log into a LMS or their email or something like this. The first thing I do in this activity is I designate space. This is my version of a fessing up group. Okay, I invite students to join a side of the room based on their preference for participating. That preference might be a student has read, has lots of notes, questions, ideas, and wants to jump straight into a conversation. So there's space for that. Another student may prefer to read and refresh their ideas first and then jump into a conversation. So there's space in the room for that. And finally, a student may want to simply work quietly and independently. So we have a quiet side of the room. What I do not do is bring up preparedness. I do not stigmatize or celebrate any of these particular spaces. I simply create the space and invite a student to join where they feel they will benefit the most from a particular activity. Okay? Once students have settled into groups, we next have a 10-minute warm-up. And I guide this warm-up by asking them to do one of three things or mixing these three things together. They can talk about or identify main ideas and supporting points. They can find key words or words that are simply unfamiliar and look up their definitions. Or they can design two head-scratching questions about a specific quote in the article or text we're reading. These warm-up activities validate all circumstances by which students have prepared for this particular class. They equip every single student to begin to grapple with this text in new ways. And they also set me up as the instructor to invite students to participate in an all-class discussion following these 10 minutes, where I strategically put on the board main ideas, supporting points, questions asked, and definitions. I can validate every student's contribution, whether they've read the text before class or not, and this discussion we have after this warm-up activity, for some students allows them to go deeper. They begin to see nuanced meaning that they hadn't recognized before the class. For some, the concepts are just now coming into focus and they're starting to feel confident with this text. And for others, they've gained time they didn't have before or a pretext. In other words, we've activated a schema for them to now get into the text, to access the text, which they did not have access to before class began. What happens next is my favorite part. We use this warm-up discussion, these notes on the board, to then dive deeper. At this point, I ask students to log into this Google Doc who have not done so already, either with a device that they've brought to class or sometimes I coordinate with media services to have a few laptops available. Students will log in. I ask them to scroll down where they're going to find a series of categories, questions, as well as open space to contribute. These categories and questions always change throughout the semester, whether it's an early in the semester activity, maybe we're close to an essay project, or maybe it's just a concept that I want us to grapple with. So these are always flexible, what they might be. But what's consistent in this activity is they will find a grid with their name in it. And as they scroll down to look for a question that they feel confident they can answer, I ask them to remove their name from the grid, place their name next or into that category, and then begin to grapple with that question. Okay? This is what I like. Here's what I like about this activity. Um, every student contributes, every student participates. And because we've warmed up, because I have validated our thinking about this assignment in a variety of ways, every student has a way to contribute. As this part of the activity unfolds, some students' names disappear quickly, and I look over and I see they're off doing something else. Other students' names linger, and I can see them rereading and flipping through pages. This grid gives me a real-time insight into what's going on in my class. I can walk around the class strategically and target students who are struggling, who have finished too quickly. I can also see, as they are listing quotes and offering responses, if they're approximating understanding but not quite there, I can go and have a conversation with them. And for each of these students, the ones who work quickly, the ones who struggle, the ones who aren't quite there yet, I can tee them up, right, for a follow-up discussion. I can go back to them and say, we had a really cool discussion about, would you please share? So the takeaway of this activity is students gain confidence and certainty in liminal space. The space of the classroom, which can be intimidating as we get into more complicated ideas and ways of approaching a text, as well as the liminal space of the text itself. How to get in, what to do first, asking questions, looking up words, finding main ideas, etc. This activity also sets students up for success in their essays because they will always have access to this Google Doc, which is now populated with quotes, with inferences, with questions, with voices. And so this now becomes a resource we've created together, which we can go back to, which we can further develop, and which I can always celebrate. Your ideas were so great there in the Google Doc. Let's build that up in your essay to again build confidence and certainty.